Tropical Storm Neoguri. It is the first tropical system since the start of July out here in the Western Pacific, and now pulling off there towards the north. Now this one is going to be a potential damaging storm system for those of you across parts of Western Japan and the southern Japanese islands. At this time, really gaining some strength out here, and the latest visible satellite imagery just shows a fairly intense storm system just towards the south of Guam here on the 4th of July. 2014. Hi everyone, meteorologist Robert Spetta here with you today, and this update we are really concentrating on this storm system. It very well could be the third typhoon of 2014, but the first one to have direct impact on any land areas. Remember back earlier this season, we had several storm systems, but none of them really came close to any major land areas. We had several tropical storms as well. This is actually Typhoon Hachiban in Japan, which means the 8th storm of 2014, using nomenclature out here. So let's get into the storm system, and first and foremost, where it is right now, it's actually a tropical storm towards the southwest of Guam. Winds at this time estimated to be about 35 knots sustained via the Japan Meteorological Agency, gusting up to 50 knots at this time. Pressure at 998 HPA, but if we scroll ahead through the forecast, this is expected to intensify rather quickly, looking ahead through the 5th into the 6th and becoming a typhoon sometime here by Saturday night into Sunday morning. This is the official track from the Japan Meteorological Agency, JTWC, that is the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, also referred to them as the U.S. military. They have it a little bit stronger at this time. I actually am leaning a little bit more towards this. We're seeing so much convection wrap around this storm system, and they expect it to gain intensity up to about 125 knots. If you know the scale for the JTWC, that is just shy of it becoming a super typhoon. So this is definitely something we want to watch through the coming days here, and we're going to continue to keep an eye on it as it does push along. Let's take a look though at what we are seeing, at least at this time, from Guam, the Guam National Weather Service. They do have several warnings out, actually high surf warnings in effect for most of Guam. Gale warnings are now in effect, small craft advisories, hazardous sea conditions. This is just going to be one of those days, if you are out here, do not head out towards the beach. I think that's the biggest thing you can take from this. As we scroll down and take a look at where the storm system is now, you have Guam right in here. Our storm's going to be just off there towards the west. Take a look at actually the precipitation and the wind. We'll get rid of the cloud cover. And we still have some gusty winds coming in from the southern periphery around the western flank of around the eastern flank of the storm system. So it is going to be bringing some pretty nasty conditions. Back on the visible imagery, you can actually see where our storm is at this time as it does rotate up just towards the west. So the conditions will persist on Friday. If you are military out there in Guam, let's take a look ahead actually, and we can see that it will improve ahead through Saturday, and definitely in the Sunday you're still going to be seeing some southerly breezy conditions. But if you want to hit the beach on Friday for the 4th of July, I would not recommend it. I think that would be kind of hazardous to your health, but just wait, sit back and wait a few days. Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be beautiful out there as the storm system starts to drift off there towards the west. So just wait a second and always be safe. Stay out of the water at the very least. Rip currents are definitely going to be a very dangerous and serious thing for those of you across the Mariana Islands. Let's take a look ahead though. What is going to be happening once this pulls away from the Mariana Islands? Well, we do have a high pressure off there towards the north. Now you got to remember this storm system is going to be rounding the western periphery of that high. And actually what I mean by that, we take a look at the overall background flow, the streamline analysis. You know I like using this. You could see your high pressure over here towards the east. Now, see these lines and the arrows? Storm systems really, they tend to want to follow those lines and arrows. That's the overall background flow, and they usually go to a path of least resistance, kind of like water flowing down a hill. So what we're going to be seeing with this storm system is it basically following that path of least resistance. There's your high around the western flank of that high, coming off here towards the north, and then eventually turning towards the north and eventually northeast. It depends on how hard this, how intense this subtropical ridge is going to be over the course of the next, well, basically 24 to 48 hours that will determine if the storm system is going to make a direct impact on the southern Japanese islands. That's what I want to talk about. As for the Philippines, I know it's been raining out there for you, and you've actually been experiencing some, well, flooding over the course of the past 24 hours. And through the weekend, I think that's going to be a problem too. The reason that's occurring, you have 91W in our tropical storm. It's really enhancing that monsoon. And what I mean by that, it's just gathering in the moisture and just pushing it across most of the Philippines, including those of you in Manila. Lexter here on Thursday was stuck there at class. He couldn't get out. We have that moisture inflow, and you see it right here. It really does look like almost a river of moisture coming across and feeding into our storm system, and that's what's causing the flooding out here for you. But that aside, let's look at the forecast here. Now, this is the ECMWF model. I do want to note this is a model outlook. It's not a track, as we see here with JTWC and also the Japan Meteorological Agency. This is one of the tools that these two agencies like to look at. Both of them are keeping the storm system a little bit here towards the east of Okinawa, and I think that's going to be a likely scenario because many of the models, they're pulling it farther here towards the east. The tropical ridge is looking like it should be a little bit weaker, but just a little bit wavering would mean a huge difference for those of you into Naha, because it would either mean the storm system's going to pass just towards the east and leave you on the weaker western flank, or, as we see in this model outlook from the ECMWF, it is the one storm system that is actually pulling it here towards, well, the west of Okinawa, and that would put you on the eastern flank or the right front quadrant of the storm. And I'm just showing this to you for basically informational purposes, showing you what could happen and why you should start preparing now for the potential of a damaging storm system. Now, see there in the top right, you have your date, and in the bottom left, those are the winds out there for Naha. Actually, I'll have to fix this because right now, there you go, 32 kilometers per hour starting there on Monday. So if you have a long weekend plans here for the 4th of July, it may very well end early by Monday because you're already looking at cloudy conditions and 32 kilometer per hour winds. Up until this point, this is likely what's going to be happening, even if the storm pulls off towards the east. The big difference with this outlook and some of the other ones, though, is that on Tuesday, look at that. Look where the center is. Look where Naha is. It puts you right in the right front quadrant. And then that brings up the winds upwards and over 100 kilometers per hour, adding up to about 150, 130 kilometers per hour. That would be a very intense storm system. Definitely worst case scenario if this followed through. This model's been pretty persistent on that occurring. Let's take a look at some of the other ones, though, and I do want to show you what's happening here with the GFS as well. And I'll go ahead and pull that up for you, where it, in the latest run at the very least, pushes it just north of Okinawa, or just north of Naha, but it still has you in the right front quadrant and actually puts you on the left periphery of that right front quadrant. It's not as intense as towards the right, but it's still going to be some damaging weather and typhoon strength winds, very well likely across much of the southern Japanese islands if this follows through. So, you know, at this time, I know if you are military out here, and I keep on stressing that because I know a lot of you are from this part of Japan are watching our military, I think you should start making those preparations now. At the very least, just be sure that when Tuesday rolls around, Monday night into Tuesday, and eventually over towards Wednesday, depending how fast the storm system goes, be ready to have to sit inside those days. Okinawa is one of those islands that they're built for typhoons. As long as you don't do anything stupid and head out into the beach to try to see some waves, you should be fine until the storm system passes. It's just one of those scenarios, but you always want to be ready for the worst. Last year, if you went through it, we had a few storms actually roll across the island. And if you know from last year, it was a perfect example. A few of them hit the northern periphery of the island, and we seen winds 150 kilometers per hour, but in Naha, on the southern periphery, the winds weren't as high, upwards of tropical storm strength. It depends on exactly where that center line goes. Still, you're going to be seeing damaging winds away from the center, but the intense stuff is right around that center of circulation. So this is something we're going to be watching over the course of the next several days and watching how this track wavers from left to right, and the closer it gets to the southern Japanese islands, how intense it could be. Now, as we look at a little bit farther ahead, I do want to mention that if we look a little bit farther ahead towards western Japan, Kyushu, Shikoku, that center line is not going to matter as much. What we're going to be looking at that point is the rainfall coming out of the storm system, because it's going to be rather large, rather massive, and what we're going to be seeing is an abundance of moisture basically coming on shore out there towards western parts of Japan, and I think that's going to cause some significant flooding and landslides if this forecast follows through. I mean, you get a typhoon coming on shore in some of these mountainous terrains, it squeezes out that moisture like a sponge, and we see that threat of significant flooding. So this is definitely going to be a problem by mid-next week, Wednesday into Thursday, even across Tokyo. It's still going to be pretty nasty, especially if that storm system recurves and it skims the coastline, which is still possible if it kind of pushes up along the coast and heads out towards the Kii Peninsula and the Kanto Plain. But at least at this time, the Japan Meteorological Agency expects it to move somewhere into southern portions of Kyushu. So this is something I'm going to talk about more so next week. For now, it is Guam, the Mariana Islands, the Philippines, the enhancement of the monsoon, heading over there towards Okinawa and the southern Japanese islands. You could take the brunt of a very strong typhoon by Tuesday. And yeah, with that said, stay safe out there, everybody. I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you to know the threat that is there. Now, if the storm system wavers a little bit, the threat will be gone, and that would be good news. The good news about an island is that it's a small area, so it's kind of like shooting a bow and arrow at a small target with these storm systems. If it hits, it's going to cause some damage, but if it misses, missed, and then the fish get the worst of the weather. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, though, you can always post them out there into the comment box below. Also, follow us on our Facebook and Twitter. We're posting information on that all day. Newest information's coming out on that. But also at the website, at the Tropical Information Center. If you go to the website, actually, this is a satellite picture right there for the site. Go up to the top here, and there's Tropical Information Center, the daily SAT update, surface analysis, that's from the Korean Meteorological Agency, and also a slew of other products and information. The Tropical Information Center, though, that has our latest information on that, but also the latest tracks, live stream, JTWC's forecast, latest model outlooks. There's just a lot of stuff on this that I would recommend going to check out. But just remember to continue to check back in with your official agencies as well. I always got to make sure to put that on there at the end. All right, guys, stay safe out there. Bye.